Hi, everyone. It's Jen from Jen Metamorphosis Mentoring. And today I have a beautiful guest. And you see me wearing like red lipstick, red everything. It's a part of the representation to invite this beautiful fiery energy into the chat with me today.
Yeah.
So here I come introducing this beautiful woman, Andrea Mancuso from New York, Brooklyn. Yeah,
Brooklyn.
welcome to join the Authenticity Project, and I'm so honored to have your presence with me. And honestly speaking, we just connected, but immediately I just sense probably is a good word, sense you're bold, courageous, passionate vibe, through your
Thank you.
connection with you. So I feel we have much to chat today, especially with the word "we."
Yeah, listen.
Before we dive in, I totally would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit. How is your
Absolutely.
healing journey has brought you to become this visionary of creative? I know you're a mental advocate, health advocate, you're a school psychologist, you're a coach, a facilitator. But what I truly appreciate is your humanness.
Thank you.
This journey has been quite a ride. Doesn't matter what the storyline is. And we're here to be messy and see the messiness without shaming it. Would totally love you to share about your healing journey, especially what I know about you was last year, the pandemic, and how it really prompted you to create. And who you are today is a founder, the CEO of Intentional Healing and Wellness. Okay, let's go, girl.
Yeah, thank you. So first and foremost, Jen, I want to say thank you for inviting me to join you, for the Authenticity Project. I am grateful. I'm excited. And yeah, I'll jump right in and share a bit about myself. I am, yes, as you said, a mental health advocate. I have been practicing as a school psychologist for the past 14 years. I just resigned from my position to pursue my role as CEO of Intentional Healing and Wellness on a full-time basis. I am the host of a new podcast that I just launched, the V Spot, and the V stands for vulnerability. So we will certainly dig into vulnerability a bit later. But how did this all happen? So I was in the school system for the past 14 years, really getting more and more frustrated as the years went on, because what I am best at, which is direct work with people, I was not able to do much of. I was really overseeing cases. And so there was a lot of paperwork. And that wasn't my thing, So I was becoming more and more clear about the fact that I wanted to pursue a passion, which was to create a space where I can be with people and utilize wear my coaching hat, my therapeutic interventions hat, and really dig in and be with people, especially now, to heal as a collective. And so last year here in New York City, we're at the height of the pandemic. My older brother ends up with COVID and is in ICU for about a week. And I lost, Jen, access to all of my tools, training, everything, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so, I have a history of struggling with panic disorder, a history of anxiety, and it came flooding, over me with a vengeance. And so after a couple of days of being in bed and struggling through, I remember sitting up one day and thinking, you can either stay here and navigate the pandemic in this way with no certainty of what it's going to look like, or you can get up and take every bit of training, every piece of your experience, every tool you have access to in your metaphoric toolkit, and create something that not only you need, but that the world is in need of right now. And so Intentional Healing and Wellness was born. And so it's a coaching business, also consulting services. and individual small group coaching. And now I'm really working hard to bring conversations to the corporate world, to really talk about mental health, to shine the light on shame, to really humanize that we are all in this together. And though some of us talk about it a little bit more than others, we are all going through similar things, and so that is what I am up to at this particular moment.
Thank you, Andrea. I just feel so much, just something's brewing in me is that when you said it's a corporate area that you're serving, such a big service, because, kind of having this flashback right now. I was working in the corporate for a decade or so, and then I definitely felt a lot of anxiety, like depression probably, and just not feeling fulfilled, And then so the whole time was wondering why I was feeling that way, but it didn't really kick me out of the zone. I didn't even know that I was in the comfort zone. I thought I was just doing what I had to do,
Yeah.
When I was being kicked out of the zone, it was because my health came to me as an issue. I got my hearing loss, for a couple of months. And that really kicked my butt by the universe and telling me to look deeper. And as this path that we're on, especially for, a control freak, ex-control freak, like how I was, losing my mind in order to get in touch with my soul was a thing, but I didn't know. I was just like losing my mind. I was like, oh my God, shit, who am I? And what I do. And then now, without just kind of like self-identity, just all crumbling down, like really knowing I'm hitting the bottom of the bottom. So from that point on, I started realizing one thing I would love to talk to you about is characters. Yeah, this word just came in. Character. So character, I think it's different from how we view like, personalities. I mean, this person can have beautiful, charming personalities. Like, I think I learned or conditioned to know how to do my personality in a way, like people pleasing and, make sure we're happy so people like me. Put that aside. And what are those more intricate, the inner qualities or the essence that we talk about, right? The essence that we, as a human, we can hone in because they're all in us. They're all in us. And I know your work, your sacred work is all about helping your beloveds to cultivate, what are their essences, and that's a part of my work as well. So I want to talk to you more about it because your service talks so much about courage, persistence, what else? Consistency and honesty. But today we're dive into the harder one, which is called the V, the vulnerability.
Listen, it's no easy thing. I mean, first, I just want to go back to something that you said to move forward. I think it's so profound that, when the world is so busy and noisy, there's an opportunity that's literally put upon you to have you reflect, who am I when I can't hear the outside noise, right? And I think that to hear you in this moment speak of that profound experience, I just think I'm sure it wasn't easy and scary. And I would imagine that also the what you gained access to during that time is likely a gift, whether you name it that or not yet, So I just want to say that that's a profound experience,
Hidden
vulnerability.
Vulnerability. What do you see this important V word that, as you know, Brene Brown talks about it. She talks about how to really have that intimacy with ourselves. But I would love to hear about your opinion and how your perspective is being formed. And how did you connect with vulnerability? From when?
So I first, and I speak about this in episode 1 of the V Spot. So, it's certainly worth checking out when you all have some free time. I was first introduced to vulnerability about 5 years ago. And, you know, vulnerability is definitely a buzzword that we hear more and more these days. However, Brene Brown's version of vulnerability, how she describes it, the components that she speaks of, really landed for me. And so she speaks about it being risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. And she really talks about it as the willingness to show up when you don't have control over the outcome. Now, I am someone who is a controller. I am someone who is a planner. And so the idea of showing up and not having any control over the outcome terrified me. It terrified me, Jen. I was like, what do you mean? You know, what do you mean? It went against everything that I actually knew. And as I shared before, you know, history of panic disorder and struggling with anxiety. Vulnerability was like the perfect recipe for a disaster. But I did know quickly when I came in contact to, you know, risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. Not only did I feel exceptionally scared and uncomfortable by those three components, but I had this inner knowing, intuition, trust, whatever you want to name it, that really pointed me to the direction of there's something magical here for you. And so, as terrified as you are, if you are willing to show up and not know the outcome, but show up anyway, and if you're allowing yourself to be seen, and if you are willing to really show it all and just, you know, as human as can be, put yourself out there, I had this like deep inner vibration going on that sort of let me know this is where the magic is at, you know. And at that time, I wasn't experiencing any magic in my life. You know, like I said, that control is somewhat of an illusion, and I was holding my life as very controlled. And so I was actually taking a personal development course. I was introduced to vulnerability. I freaked out and was like, oh no, the idea of risk and uncertainty and emotional exposure. And it was in that experience that I opted to choose courage and move forward anyway. So as terrified as I was really calling myself forth. And Jen, each step that I took forward in the direction of, I experienced a bigger breakthrough and more healing and more freedom. And so I knew this was my sweet spot. You know, this was a combination of trust, vulnerability, and courage is where it was at, you know. And so I committed to be that, you know. And since then, it's a constant calling self forward. It's a constant coaching conversation with myself of choosing courage over comfort, you know, and being willing to be uncomfortable, be scared, and do the thing anyway, whatever the thing is. So at different points of my life, it's looked different. You know, I'm someone who, from past pain and hurt and heartache, opted out of dating for almost a decade. And when I come into contact with vulnerability and start to interact with it in a new way, I was able to actually coach myself back into the dating game. So I've really been able to create an immense amount of results. None of them easy, right? Because, you know, it's like we have our voice inside that says, like, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? What the hell is happening? But nonetheless, the persistence has been a choice. And the breakthroughs and the results have been, you know, I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. So as scary as it is, I really offer to anyone listening, it's a choice, and choose it as terrifying as it is. Choose it over and over.
Choose it over and over. I hear that echoing back right now. I just want to just kind of reflect back on what you said, because 5 years ago, I was exactly at the same spot as, well, similar spot as you. So vulnerability, it's pretty much like a taboo, you know, in my family culture, or from a very reserved family culture where I was raised up. And, you know, you don't just put your emotional exposure out there just because you want other people to see you. So that has been a very interesting navigation for me all these years. especially with my loved ones. But I gotta say, like, vulnerability itself, why people are so afraid of vulnerability, including my past self, is because it's so tender. It is so tender.
Absolutely.
It requires courage, which is one of your important quality. The courage to stand up for yourself, but not in the comfort zone, but outside of the comfort zone, right? Outside of the comfort zone, and also detach from the result, like you said. Detach from the result of,
Totally.
oh my God, if I say this, like stand up courageously, am I going to receive that expectation, the expected result of what I think I will receive, you know? And that
Yeah.
has been very, very interesting. So
Yeah.
unpredictability when we're in the V game, right? V game.
In the V spot.
In the V spot, in the V spot. Unpredictability and the relationship with ourselves and our unknown selves, I guess. It's not only the unknown of the whole collective atmosphere, but the unknown self, because there's always that part of you is yet to be known.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is, I mean, you brought up so many good points. I just want to like address some of them quickly because I think that, you know, you speak of family, right? And I think about culture and society and family, yes, right? And I think that depending upon where you are raised, you know, who you were raised by, vulnerability is held as a weakness. And so I think that in order to choose vulnerability and choose it consistently, there's a lot of unlearning that has to be done, right? And so it's we really have an opportunity to look at our experiences and what was sort of put onto us, and to no fault of anybody, right? It's like everybody is literally living their life. So, you know, let's say I look at my parents and I think about the way they were raised and the experiences they had, and for whatever their reasons, they held things to be a certain way. You know, I grew up in an Italian American family here in Brooklyn. You didn't talk about your feelings. You know, like I grew up here. I was born in the late 70s, grew up in the 80s. It was a different type of Brooklyn that was happening. You know, there was different rules and unspoken, you know, societal rules that basically said you don't speak of stuff, you know, you keep your stuff quiet, and it's you keep your family business quiet, you know, you keep your neighbors stuff, like you see whatever you like that's the way it goes, right? And so to, you know, be a 42-year-old woman who, it's not about, vulnerability is not about telling all, you know, it's really not. It's really about being willing to, and I love how it connects to the Authenticity Project, because it's really when, yeah, like it really is connected, because, you know, with being your authentic self, some people are not going to like you. Like that's the realities. We are not for everyone. And there's a real courage that comes with being your authentic self, because there's a willingness to allow for and trust that the people who have a listening for you will listen and hear you, and the people who don't won't, and you have to be willing to allow for that to be the case. You know, so I think it's just so powerful to connect to what you said pertaining to family, because I would also offer that there's a need to unlearn a lot of things, right? A lot of things. And the first and foremost point pertaining to vulnerability is it is absolutely our strength, not a weakness.
Yes.
You know, and when we are able to tap into that and you know, think about yourself and the experience of being in someone's company who is vulnerable, who is willing to, you know, pave the way in this courageous fashion, it's contagious when you see it occurring. There's like a, you know, there's a real, I would say for myself, like admiring, a respect. You know, I'm really in awe of people who choose to show up that way. And when I think about how I was raised and sort of like conditioned, I would never think that that's how I would hold it. So I think that healing involves a lot of unlearning. And I have absolutely been, you know, an A student in the front of the class. Like, what else do I have to unlearn to be able to navigate my life differently?
I am on the same boat with you, trying to be that A student in the inner work.
Yeah.
All right. But so, like you said, it's so funny, like how we sync just simultaneously on the same time is that vulnerability versus authenticity, they are so intertwined. Because in order for us to be authentic of who we truly are, yes, we have to realize that, you know, you're not everyone's cup of tea, and you're gonna trigger people.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna trigger people.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna be triggered back as well, right? And that has been the densest, dense, right? Very dense. Yet it is so potent. It is so potent with full of healing juice. Because you talk about
Mm.
making conscious choice and having this intentional healing within oneself, but without being able to see with awareness, like, wow, I'm gonna call myself out. My ego doesn't like it. Seriously, I mean,
Mm.
I never love what my ego loves to see. No, never. Okay, my ego hates whatever that it
Yeah.
loves to see. So be able to just call ourselves out, I think that's considered a self-love action for me. I mean, throughout the years,
Mm.
that's how I learned it.
Yeah.
Jen, you're being hella triggered. And instead of about to point fingers about you're being victimized by that circumstances, what's going on that you need to
Mm.
see deeper within you, right? And the ego has to stand aside, has to stand aside.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's been, well, as you know, humbling experiences always comes when we're willing to see it.
Totally, totally. And I love what you're highlighting, because I think it speaks to the importance of, it's never about the other person, right? Like I think about, one of my mentors says, like, a person could only push your button if you have the button to push. And so whenever there is this trigger, there's an opportunity to really look within to see, well, what is it, you know, about me? Usually the conversation, and I've heard it so many times, and I've been guilty of it so many times, get triggered and look at the other person. What is it about them? Look at what they're doing. Da, da, da. They don't know. They don't know this. They don't know that. How are they? And it's like, what I've come to learn through this journey is the trigger happens, and there's a real opportunity to look at self, to see like, what is it? What's here? You know, what about me has me so affected by A, B, and C? And that's a real opportunity. Talk about checking the ego. It's
Right.
really that like consistent discipline of, oh, the trigger happens, check the ego, because now, you know, let me look within and what's going on. And, you know, by the way, a lot of this is absolutely a practice, and it's not something that I was able to, you know, get really right. And still there are times where things happen and I'll catch myself a few minutes in, like, no, it's not them. What is it with you? And again, it's this discipline, it's a commitment. It's like the recommitment, you know, when you catch yourself like screwing up or blaming or looking someplace else, it's really the recommitment of, wait, but I have this trigger. And so like the ego gets tucked over here, and let me be with what's happening, you know, to be able to grow and get level up and just be the best version of ourselves that we can be, from like moment to moment to moment to moment. It's not enough, you know, who I was yesterday, who I was last week. It's like right now, new moment, level up, you know.
I'm just breathing.
Not easy work, Jen. Not easy work.
I know it's not easy work. And part of my work is also about soul alignment, right? And like, what does it mean by being soul aligned? It's pretty much, you know, what we've been talking about, to be honest, because we're souls, but we're incarnated in our physical body. And then we are allowing, you know, the unknown to guide us through whatever that we need to experience. And that's vulnerable because it's all about unpredictability. But when we are so trained, we've learned or taken on from conditions and programming, holy cow, you know, ooh la la, we're just having a lot of stuff on our back. And how do we travel? How do we travel light, you know?
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you this question then, because as you know, this is a weird era that we're in. Facebook, all the social media, we're down for not for
Yeah.
hours, but
Yeah.
and it's hard to even like say, okay, how do I still stay grounded while I'm facing these uncertainty, and which is part of vulnerability, right?
Mm.
Just talk about what Brene Brown was talking about too, is
Yeah.
being able to lean into that uncertainty, even though it include risk, even though it
Totally.
include your emotional exposure that you're not comfortable with, right?
Hmm.
So how would you encourage women who do have the heart to follow their, I try not to repeat too many hard stuff, but it's still heart's desire, okay? Heart's desires, their dreams, their purpose. Yet still being afraid of getting out of their comfort zone, whatever that comfort zone is. Some comfort zone is like, I don't want to trigger my partners who are probably not okay with what I'm doing. Okay, so
Mm.
I'm gonna step on some buttons again. So I'm going to zigzag my way through life, even though I still have that heart desire in me. You know,
Yeah.
how do you encourage women who really want to embrace the bigger version, or let's say more authentic version of who they are, while being on this vulnerable spot?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, a couple of things come up when you ask that question. First and foremost, I think about trusting self, which I believe to be a practice too. And
Yes.
I think that, for women, we are raised in a way and experience society in a way that has us get away from trusting ourselves, right? So instead of honing in on what we truly desire, what we really want, we become used to asking our friends, asking our family, looking on social media, looking in magazines, hearing from everybody else what it should be. And so the first thing that comes to mind is really a commitment. Sorry, you have to love Brooklyn. There's motorcycles and
That's
things in the
cool.
background. The soundtrack of my life.
Yeah.
There's really an opportunity to hone in on your true desires, and I think that this really requires time spent with self
Yeah.
to actually identify what's mine, what belongs to somebody else. And so I think that as women, we often too go after goals. And not just women, I would say people in this conversation, men and women, we often do go after goals. And quite frankly, they're not even ours. They were goals that were given to us when we were younger, or from a teacher or a friend or a boyfriend, a girlfriend. You'd be good at this. And then all of a sudden we're going after it and we're wondering, why am I never able to actually reach this thing? Because it's not even our passion. So when I think about your question, what would you offer to women who want to move into their more authentic version of themselves and are balancing what do other people think? I think first and foremost, it's tapping into what they truly desire, getting clear on it, and then really flexing that muscle, which often comes with a commitment to communication, and sometimes it means saying no to someone else, which is actually saying yes to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the willingness to be in the practice of that. So it's a different kind of gym. We're not necessarily in the gym lifting traditional weights, but we are like flexing the self-trust muscle and trying on, like, what is it like to be willing to disappoint some people, and not out of malice, or ill intent, rather an honoring of self.
This is so good. Thank you, Andrea. So this one little sentence came in now. It's like you love people from distance. It does not mean you cut off love. I don't love them anymore because their values are completely different. I prefer just cut cords and burn bridges. I think relationships it's the dynamic of relationships that we are all trying to master, is to learn how to love, but how to broaden that love to different depth, I guess. Some you feel you're in a more rich connection. You probably leaning more for that vulnerability, courageous conversation. But for some, probably they're not ready to receive that. Then it's our intuition to trust ourselves to see, well, probably not now, but then in the future, perhaps, because we all evolve. We all evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And trusting the timing of making that action that's aligned to yourself at the same time you respect the other person. I think that it's definitely like a very interesting balance that we're all here to learn.
Totally.
Boundaries too, right?
Yeah. I think about love. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Jen.
No, I was just saying boundary. That's another big layer. So, what we're doing in vulnerability and authenticity.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think about, in the conversation of boundaries, I experience oftentimes with clients where we will speak of boundaries and then I will, there will be a conversation of like violating them or not upholding them or whatever. And then I'll ask, what are some of your boundaries? And then there's this whole like, I don't even really know. And so so one of the things that I'll often encourage is to then be with that for the week, to write some out and identify some, because my question is, how do we know if you or someone else is violating the boundaries if we're not clear on what they actually are? We don't know what to uphold if we never take the time to define them.
Beautiful. And I love that. Why? Because that include trigger events. Because when we receive those triggers, those are medicines to tell us, oh, actually, I didn't know that I wasn't okay with that.
Yeah, so exactly.
Right? Oh, there's another trigger.
Totally.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I feel this way, anger or whatever, right? So they came to heal us. So I call them the ouch medicine or ouch bomb.
Yeah. I love it. And I think, I was going to say before, pertaining to love, I mean, I am on this, I would say this is an area that I am, continuously learning and growing and evolving. And certainly this is one of my areas of work. And I would say that, one of the things that I have come to learn about myself and others and relationship is that, partnership, relationship, intimate relationship is really an opportunity to learn about ourselves and heal together.
Yeah.
And, that looks different for everyone. And I think that my work has also been around letting go, and I think that there are times I am oh so clear that I was unwilling to let go. And with that, dragged myself through experiences that I didn't need to go through, and so when I think about, right now I am single, I am looking to date. And when I think about being in relationship and in the dating realm, what's so important for me these days is keeping in the forefront of my brain. Yes, it's an opportunity to learn about yourself. Yes, it's an opportunity to grow. And it's so important to honor the boundaries and be willing to let go when the mission and the alignment no longer, the path isn't going in the similar direction. And not to say that we need to be on the same road, because I think that that's what makes us so different, is that we're navigating such different experiences and similar but different. But sometimes, paths just grow apart. And instead of clinging and staying so tight to something, what I've been working on is recognizing when it's like, let go or be dragged, and it's a big one for me.
I am amazed. Why? Because not willing to let go, that's part of my theme as well, and then continuously being aware that that's part of the drainage that we created, right, for ourselves to experience, like, misalignment, inner battle or turmoil, right?
Yeah.
And that unwillingness, again, my own personal experience to learn about, like, okay, how do I pour more self-compassion into this part of unwillingness so I don't guilt it, I don't shame it, but let it be. So trusting that the timing when it comes, the willingness emerges naturally to the unwillingness. So it all dissolves peacefully rather than, oh, let me just push it through. Let me just do the Lego work, you know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think it's a real opportunity, Jen, to look at least what I hear you saying and what I identify with in this is it's a real opportunity to look at what are you afraid of? You know, and I've had to question fear in these situations so much. It's like, am I afraid to start over? Am I afraid that I'm never going to find, you know, what the type of partner that I'm looking for?
right.
Am I afraid that I am unworthy of? Like, what is my conversation around feeling enough? Do I feel that I'm being chosen and picked? You know, there's so many like layers to peel back and look. But I would say that stashed underneath those, based on what I'm hearing you say, that I identify with, I've always found fear. I've always like landed on like, there's more fear. There's more fear here, you know, and the power of becoming aware of it. Because now if I'm in a conversation of unworthy, you know, which I definitely identify with, I am able to actually then coach myself and be with, you know, your worth is inherent. You don't have to look for it. It's not in his hands or whatever, you know, like, and really center and recommit. Like I said before, recommit.
This is so good. So what you just demonstrated, it is a demonstration. You personally share about that inner experience that you had, right? With all these little examples. That's part of, you know, what as we are all human beings all sharing common. You know, it's collective. The unworthiness is collective.
Totally.
It is not individual, to be honest. So self-love, foundational self-love becomes such
Yeah.
it's a brick that we need to continue to build. And anyone who hasn't, it's better to start. And with patience, patience has been one of another theme for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm someone who makes a decision and like, I want results like
Yeah,
yesterday. I'm like, but wait, I decided what's the, what's the process about? But, you know, one of the things to this point that I think is really worth plugging in here that I've come to learn and that I've come to really hone in on and believe, it's not about the result.
yes.
And so it's really who we become in the process of achieving the result. And I think that that is the magic, you know, and when I remind myself of that, you know, I wrote an ebook and I'm like turning it into like a webinar, but it's called The Space Between. And it's really designed, it's really about this topic. Like we give the goal and the result so much love, but the space between is not discussed. And I really hold it that the space between is the magic. And it's the part of the process where we evolve and learn about ourselves and grow. And you know, you are someone who goes after goals. So I know that you get this. What happens when we arrive at a goal? When we turn a goal out, what do we do?
Looking out for the next.
Yeah, we're like on to the next thing, right? And so it's like about that process of, okay, so, you know, now what process will I set out to create? And again, not, yes, the cherry on top is the actual tangible thing that we turn out, but that's not the magic, you know? And so when I hear you speaking of this, I just think about, you know, in terms of patience and process, I'm called to, and I believe me, if anybody heard the conversations that I have with myself, they would be like, you are, give yourself a break. But I coach myself all the time about, you know, stay committed and don't be so hooked on eye on the prize, because then you're missing the whole route that is the essence of the journey. You know, like in the end, and I say this in the ebook, like in the end, I don't believe it's going to be the result or the goal that we remember most. I believe it's going to be the space between.
I can feel my head just keep on nodding.
Yeah.
what I really like, we can just dive in forever. So why we're so attached to the goal rather than the process, because we are putting so much value on it. And when we hit that goal, that's like, oh, I finally can approve myself that I did it. So my self-worth is based and linked tightly to that, right? And that cycle needs to just dissolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, look, I think that there's tremendous power and value, you know, in the actual goal, right? And the attaining of. I mean, I am someone who sets out regularly to create results. And of course, I want to create the thing or have the experience, whatever it may be, you know. But I've definitely had to conversate with myself many times to be like, all right, yes. And when you get there, you know from past experience that it's usually like, great, now what? And so that's right there, the indicator that it's not the actual thing for us.
Yeah.
It's tied to something, whether it's affirming our good enough conversation, whether it's affirming how worth it we feel we are, whether it's affirming how, you know, whatever valuable we're experienced by other people. What is it? You know, because usually there's not many people, especially like I call us like goal getters. There's not goal getters who usually get there and are like, let me chill. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy. Let me,
For 5
not the
minutes.
process. Right. But, and then it's like, okay, let me re-up. What now? What now? What next? And so I think that there's definitely this, you know, yes, results are exceptionally important and often bring about something, a reward, a motivation, an incentive. And I think that us really getting clear on the fact that the process to get there, that is the sweet spot. The process is everything.
I want to thank you for addressing this, because overachiever syndrome, is that how we call it? Overachiever syndrome. We need healing around the unworthiness cycle that we have just emotionally invested too much in the goal-oriented world, right? And the mainstream sort of promotes it too, right? Oh, that's the way you achieve. You got to show the outer world what have you done. But that's not what our soul wants to experience after all, because we're not living moment by moment, like you said. We missed out the thing. We missed out the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a whole entire society, industry, business, culture that thrives off of people feeling that they are not enough. Men, women, children, everything. And so it perpetuates this narrative. I'm not enough. So what else do I need to buy, get, have, go after, you know, to have that feeling occur? And most of it's occurring on an unconscious level, right? So which is why we could continuously find ourselves in situations where we are going after certain things in this attempt to soothe and have that like, am I enough now? Am I enough now? Am I enough now? And it's like, it's up to us to really start to get clear on the whole conversation, so that it's like, wait, I don't need another pair of shoes in my closet, Jen. If you look at my closet, it's full. I don't need another pair of shoes, another bag, another whatever, you know, and it looks different, right? Depending on the conversation. So for some, it's cars, for some, whatever it is, another degree, another, you know, certification, another anything to be like, now I'm enough, you know? So, and this, I again, another journey, another life's work that doesn't end.
I just have to say, you know, thank you for bringing that one up, because it has so many different layers. One is like, okay, let me compensate, overcompensate through materialism or however that is, right? Or other ways around. I'm gonna numb myself. I don't feel it. And I pass myself, well, I'm grateful for what I have, so I'm not gonna go for my dreams, because no, you know, I'm grateful, I'm living moment by moment. You know, that's like another different system that I had to deal with some of my beloveds. So those extreme polar sometimes, but again, like healing intention, that's what we need in order to bring us more back to our alignment. When do we trust our intuition, or we just shut it down and spiritual bypassing, or, you know, false goal chasing actions to make us falsely fulfilled? So anyway, we have so much to talk about.
So good. I know there's so much, but you know, I would love to like kind of tie this to what you asked before, pertaining to the question around, you know, women and what would you offer? And I would like connect it to what we're speaking of now. I would really invite and encourage women, men, but in this, your question was about women to commit to doing this type of work, commit to conscious conversations, commit to peeling back the layers of who you are and being willing to unpack what you find with trusted people, and sometimes the trusted person is not our mother, our
Right.
father, our sister, our friend. Sometimes the trusted person is someone who has an insight that is, they're a little bit more removed from the situation. They're able to step back and see, what's occurring and not be so emotionally attached.
Mhm.
There's no investment in terms of whatever. Sometimes family and friends, we're invested in each other in a way that it's difficult to have certain conversations. But I would encourage and really push and say, be afraid and do it anyway. Acknowledge your fear and trust that you are enough to get through whatever storm you're going through. And, there are people who are just waiting to help you, and who potentially have been through the same storm, a similar storm. Some are, able to navigate in murky conditions and can support. So, I really think that it's like this work, this conscious conversation, the authenticity project. The call to action is really to commit, not when it works for the schedule, like carve out the time for it to be in the schedule, hold it as a priority, not as like this cool thing that I'll do when I'm like not too tired from work and I'm not too busy. It's like, no, the evening, there are certain nights where it's clear the schedule, build your stuff around your healing and wellness, make it a priority like that.
Yeah, and it's nourishing to not only the soul, but it's a necessity. It's not a luxury, it's necessity to have conscious conversation. And I just love what you just talked about. This is not only, yes, my question was about women, but it's gender free. I mean, both women, men, all are on this path because we are all soul. We're exploring our growth together. Wow, sometimes I have so much just want to integrate it in, but it's hard for me to just like put it in the pot here.
Well, yeah, pull it all together. I would also say, Jen, we speak of women in this moment in the conversation of vulnerability.
Yes.
Men really have their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the pressure that society and families put on men in terms of, talk of emotional exposure. That's a non-entity in the conversation, depending upon the culture that you are raised in as a man. And so, I think that equally as important as it is for women to commit to their process, I think that it's just as important to create safe spaces for men to show up and experience the totality of the human experience, because we hold it sometimes as just because that's the gender, they should operate this way. We're all humans. We're all navigating shame, guilt, beat up, not enough, worthiness. We all have this desire to be, loved and belong to, and they are not exempt because of the gender. And it's like creating spaces where we could show up and have conversations like this and pave the way for others to do the same. I think in 2021, that's the magic.
Definitely, because this world needs both conscious women and men, doesn't matter the gender, conscious human being to join this. So you call it a trend. It's not just a trend, but it's a flow. It's a flow of how we're going to create together, so to benefit the whole humanity. And I'm so grateful to have you here with me through this authenticity project.
Thank you
for showing up so raw, so real. What else can I say? Nothing else more. And I just want to say, again, we are here to appreciate the differences, to dissolve separation. This is what I think the whole collective is going through at this moment, and once we are intentionally honing on the healing ability, going within unapologetically, we need to be unapologetic toward this healing process. Absolutely. We're going to be shown the next throughout this process with trust, right? Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you so much. It's no mistake that we have, found our way to each other. And I'm incredibly grateful for the invitation to be here with you, and participate in the Authenticity Project. I'm excited to see, who else is part of the project and hear from different women, different stories.
Yes.
Thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank
I'm
you.
super excited to have you join me. And I'm looking forward because this is definitely the beginning of, a beautiful partnership. And
For sure.
I'm super grateful.
Yeah. So everyone, this is beautiful Andrea Mancuso, and you feel drawn to her fiery energy, go check out her website, intentional healing and wellness.com.
Yes, I could be found at www.intentionalhealingandwellness.com, intentional healing and wellness on social media platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you are someone who wants to bring conscious conversations to the workplace, because that's the thing that I think right now is so essential. We don't shut the switch when we go to work. And I think in the past, there was a tendency to hold it as now you're at work, turn everything off. And that's not how we operate. So I think that there's so much power in having these type of conversations. Shame, mental health, continuing on the journey of healing and wellness. Mental health in the workplace begins outside of the workplace. And so I'm excited to be able to have the conversations, Jen, and thank you to everybody who joins me on this intentional movement we have happening.
Thank you for shining your light, because we need that lighthouse to see where Andrea is.
Yeah.
The more healing can
Thank
happen
you.
globally. So thank you so much, my dear. And this is
Thank you.
beautiful, fiery Andrea Mancuso. And go ahead and find her, connect with her work. And I'm sure you'll be drawn to her healing energy. And that's it, guys. Thank you for watching.
Thanks so much.
Connecting, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.